And good evening. Funerals and frustration. It's been 1 week since that mass shooting at an elementary in Uvalde, Texas. And tonight, new reporting local officials may not be cooperating with investigators. An official confirming to NBC News that the Uvalde school's police chief has not responded to state investigators for a follow-up interview. That chief believed to be the person who gave the order for officers to wait to engage the shooter. The delayed police response now the center of a federal investigation. And tonight, an off-duty Border Patrol agent who raced into the school describing the chilling moments he arrived on the scene. The first funerals for the 21 victims getting underway tonight. Services set to last for 2 straight weeks. A Texas-based company making and donating custom caskets for the 19 young victims, each reflecting their personalities, their likes, and their dreams. Governor Abbott just issuing a disaster declaration for Uvalde, hoping to bring more resources to the grief-stricken community. Morgan Chesky tonight leads us off.
Tonight, heartbreak hitting home with hundreds saying final goodbyes.
You feel sad, man. Like, it hits you hard.
21 funerals over the next 2 weeks, including services for 4 10-year-olds today. Mate Rodriguez was remembered as a sweet soul. She wanted to be a marine biologist. Family of Nevea Bravo, whose name is Heaven spelled backwards, said she's lying with angels. Jose Manuel Flores' father said he wanted to be a police officer because he liked protecting others. And Amari Jo Garza, her family said, called 911 that morning.
I just want to honor her name. I just want her to be remembered as the type of person that she was.
The Girl Scouts honoring her with one of their highest awards, the Bronze Cross, given to those who risk their lives to try and save others. The losses of Irma and Jose Garcia, high school sweethearts, also hitting hard. After Irma was killed in her 4th grade classroom, her loving husband died 2 days later of a heart attack. They leave behind 4 children. And now new witness accounts are filling in gaps from last Tuesday.
It's just chaos. Everyone was trying to get to the school. People were trying to get everything situated. I was just trying to get towards my wife's room and my daughter's room.
Border Patrol agent Jacob Alvarado telling Savannah Guthrie he rushed to the school where his wife is a teacher and daughter a student. The off-duty officer also saw local police waiting to engage the gunman.
There's a lot of scrutiny now about the police response. What's your take on all of that?
To me, I believe everyone there was doing the best that they could, given the circumstances. Yeah, I believe everyone there was doing everything in their power.
Last week, authorities said a teacher left a door to the school propped open.
The exterior door was propped open by a teacher.
But tonight, the Texas Department of Public Safety telling NBC News the teacher closed the door after realizing there was a shooter on campus, but the door didn't lock. The Department of Justice is expected to begin its review in days.
This is not a criminal investigation. There's no allegation of criminal wrongdoing in this case. Gross incompetence, maybe. Failure to follow training, maybe.
Back at the memorial, Uvalde 4th grader Isaac Perez sending his schoolmates a message on the sidewalk.
They'll be missed by their friends.
You're going to miss them too, huh?
Yeah.
All right, Morgan joins us now from Uvalde. Morgan, I know you have some new reporting tonight on the embattled Uvalde school police chief, and there are questions tonight on whether he's still cooperating with the investigation into the response from law enforcement on this shooting.
Yeah, Tom, that's right. And DPS tells me that Pete Arredondo, who was the incident commander here at Robb Elementary as the shooting played out, and they believe he was the one who made the call to wait and not immediately engage the gunman, is not responding to authorities. We do know he provided a statement initially after the shooting, but we're told that 2 days ago, Tom, Texas Rangers requested a follow-up interview, and as of right now, he has yet to respond. Tom?
Not a good sign for all those families searching for answers tonight. All right, Morgan, we thank you for that. The loss is simply unimaginable. But Uvalde is not alone in its suffering from gun violence. There were more than a dozen mass shootings in America just over the long weekend. Sam Brock now with the increasing toll of gun violence, despite what the nation just witnessed in Uvalde.
An epidemic is once again under the spotlight. This holiday weekend, there were 15 mass shootings across the country, 9 people killed, more than 60 injured.
Every 16 hours in America, there's a mass shooting. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm angry about it.
President Biden saying he wants change, but needs bipartisan support.
There's the Constitution. I can't dictate this stuff. I can do the things I've done, And any executive action I can take, I'll continue to take.
The president meeting today with New Zealand's prime minister, where after the 2019 mosque shootings killed 51 people, the country changed its laws and bought back guns, drastically reducing mass shootings. And Canada's prime minister just introduced legislation for a national freeze on handgun ownership, which would make it illegal to buy, sell, or import the weapons. But while many Americans point to their Second Amendment protections, there's new uncertainty.
It's torn us apart, but at the same time, I hope it brings us together to realize what needs to be done.
Maximo Gonzalez has lived in Uvalde all his life and says even within this heartbroken community, there's division.
There's some people that I still talk to, that feel like more guns is the solution when it's really not the solution at all.
Opponents of gun restrictions argue they don't work.
They infringe on the rights of millions and millions of gun owners.
Pointing to areas in the U.S. with strict gun laws and high crime, calling instead for a focus on issues like mental health.
We have a group led by Senator Cornyn and Senator Murphy on the Democratic side, discussing how we might be able to come together, target the problem, which is mental illness and school safety.
As Washington leaders meet, communities across the country are waiting.
All right, Sam Brock joins us now from Uvalde, Texas. Sam, you've been out there in the community, and we heard this a little bit there in your report. But in a state that is well known for supporting the rights of gun owners, what's the sentiment from the people you're talking to there?
Tom, like the rest of the country, it's nuanced and it's fractured. I will tell you, when I've sat down with family members of victims, pretty much to a T, all of them have said they don't believe that 18-year-olds should be able to access AR-15 style rifles, and they also believe that there are systemic failures in our country when it comes to just access in general. Now, community members, some share those opinions. Others told me they think there should be more arms in schools, more armed teachers in schools. And in fact, the mayor of Uvalde here, Tom, said yesterday that he believes that it's a two-pronged issue, both guns and the people who pull the trigger, which is perhaps more of an acknowledgement than many maybe people here might have expected to hear. Tom.
All right, Sam Brock, part of our team there in Uvalde, Texas. Sam, we thank you for that. We're also tracking severe weather tonight. Millions from Texas to the Great Lakes under alert for heavy rain, dangerous winds, and hail. New video shows the extensive damage in parts of Minnesota. Look at that right there. This is Ferrata, where a tornado damaged up to 75 homes. At least 5 reported twisters touching down in that state alone. In the east, temperatures soaring into the 90s. Philadelphia dismissing all public schools early due to the heat. And record-setting Hurricane Agatha slamming into Mexico with 105-mile-per-hour winds. Remnants of the storm could bring heavy rain to South Florida over the next few days. There's a lot of weather to get to tonight, so I want to bring in Al Roker. And Al, you're starting in the heartland tonight?
Absolutely, Tom. You can see we're already looking at severe thunderstorms firing up. We got severe thunderstorm watches from Texas all the way into Kansas. Now, as this system moves to the east, 22 million people at risk from the Great Lakes all the way into the panhandle of Texas. Very large hail possible, 3 inches possible. Tornadoes, nocturnal tornadoes, twice as deadly tomorrow. From Buffalo, New York and central western New York all the way into Texas, we still have 18 million people at risk for damaging winds, hail, and we can't rule out a tornado or two. Rainfall amounts, especially heavy in Oklahoma, upwards of 3 to 5 inches of possible flooding there. Now, the heat, we continue to see those temperatures continue to soar in the northeast all the way down into the south. 91 in Atlanta, Washington 94, Nashville 91 degrees. But the good news is we'll see by the later part of the week, 60s in Boston, 70s in New York, 70s in Beckley, West Virginia. And finally, as Tom mentioned, Agatha, well, right now, the remnants of it making its way across the Yucatan Peninsula, the residual moisture moving there. But National Hurricane Center looking at this, a new tropical system could develop in this area between Key West and Cancun. 70% possibility over the next 5 days. Whether it's a tropical system or not, Tom, this thing's going to dump a ton of rain going into the weekend.
All right, a massive rainmaker there. Al, we thank you for that. We turn now to a tragedy on the water, the search for 2 women after the group they were with plunged off a dam in Virginia, and dozens of people were injured and even killed in water activities this weekend, some members of the same family. Here's NBC's Isa Gutierrez.
Tonight, 7 people dead, dozens injured, and 2 still missing after a string of horrific boating accidents over the holiday weekend.
You can see the sign behind me. That means danger zone.
In Richmond, Virginia, what was supposed to be a Memorial Day to enjoy the outdoors turned into a nightmare on the James River. When a group of 12 people went over a dam on Monday afternoon, dropping 12 feet.
10 of the victims were rescued, one of them self-rescued.
The victims rescued with the help of civilians.
Unfortunately, we couldn't find the two of them, but we were going all through there, making sure everyone got over onto the shore safely.
The women missing: Lauren Winstead, 23, and Sarah Irway, 28, according to our affiliate WWBT, reporting the group was using flotation devices on the river, but would not confirm what kind. Neighbors saying they appeared to be on rafts and paddle boards. In Colorado, another horrific incident in Lake Pueblo Sunday evening after a boat carrying 13 people, including 8 children, capsized, killing 2.
The incident occurred in 80 to 90 feet of water, so it's expected to be a tough search.
After an all-night search, Colorado Parks and Wildlife Rangers recovered a body in over 100 feet of water Tuesday morning. 11 were hospitalized for other injuries, including hypothermia, according to Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
Go for it. Hold position.
And in Georgia, astonishing video of a rescue on the Wilmington River. The video shows the U.S. Coast Guard airlifting one of 4 survivors of a boat crash near Savannah Saturday. The 2 boats colliding head-on, killing 5 people. 4 of them family, a mom, dad, and their 2 sons. Their teenage daughter survived.
Our community is going to gather around her because she's going to have a big challenge ahead of her.
4 others were injured in the accident. 45-year-old Mark Stegall now charged with boating under the influence. According to the latest data on recreational boating from the U.S. Coast Guard, more people died in recreational boating accidents in 2020 than in any other year since 2001. Alcohol use is the leading known contributing factor.
All right, Isa Gutierrez joins us now from the studio. Isa, I'm curious, has there been any update in the search for those 2 missing women in Virginia?
Tom, they are still searching. Just a few hours ago, local police putting out a video of the crews going out onto the water trying to find them. As of last night, officials saying that they are not classifying this as a recovery effort just yet. They are hopeful that they'll be able to find them.
Isa Gutierrez for us tonight. Isa, we thank you for that. Next up, a jury in a federal court case in Washington has found a lawyer not guilty of lying to the FBI. The trial had a political twist, the case brought on by a prosecutor appointed during the Trump administration. NBC's Pete Williams breaks it down for us.
The verdict is a big defeat for this man, John Durham, a federal prosecutor from Connecticut. He was appointed by former Attorney General William Barr to examine whether the FBI broke any laws in investigating possible connections between Donald Trump and Russia. In his first prosecution, Durham charged a Washington, D.C. lawyer, Michael Sussmann, with lying to the FBI in September 2016 at the height of the presidential campaign. In a meeting at FBI headquarters, Sussmann told an FBI official that data analysts had discovered what appeared to be a secret communication channel between the Trump organization and a bank in Russia with close ties to the government of Vladimir Putin. Durham charged that Sussmann lied by telling the FBI's general counsel that he was passing the information along as a good citizen, when in fact Durham claimed Sussmann was doing it on behalf of a client, the Hillary Clinton campaign, hoping to stir up negative news stories about Trump. The FBI did look into the allegation about the Russian bank and found nothing to it. During a 2-week trial, Sussmann's lawyer said the FBI official, James Baker, kept changing his story about who Sussmann said he was representing. It took a federal court jury in Washington just 6 hours to find Michael Sussmann not guilty.
Despite being falsely accused, I'm relieved that justice ultimately prevailed in my case. As you can imagine, this has been a difficult year for my family and me.
Some legal experts were surprised that Durham filed the charges in the first place, given that the FBI knew Sussmann's law firm did work for the Clinton campaign.
Usually we expect DOJ will get a conviction when it takes cases to trial, or at least that they'll have a strong case. But here the weaknesses of this case were apparent from the get-go. The acquittal is no surprise.
Pete Williams joins us now from Washington. Pete, this is not the verdict Republicans nor former President Donald Trump wanted. What is the prosecutor, John Durham, saying about this?
Well, he does say he's disappointed. He says he respects the jury's decision and he thanked his staff. But you're obviously right. He did not want his first case to end like this.
This is not the end of Durham's work, correct? As a special prosecutor, he has one more case?
Right. He has at least one more, another one coming up in the fall. He is prosecuting a Russian analyst who lives in the U.S., Igor Danchenko. He's accused of repeatedly lying to the FBI about where he got the information that ended up in the infamous Trump dossier, the document that's now been widely discredited. He's pleaded not guilty. His trial will be in the fall, Tom.
All right, Pete Williams for us. Pete, we appreciate that. Staying in Washington now, we head to the White House. President Biden's promise to make fighting inflation his top priority. But the president is said to be frustrated that his message isn't getting through amid mounting challenges. Kelly O'Donnell is at the White House tonight for us.
A crisis about the cost of everyday things. Gas prices hitting another all-time high today, $4.62 for a gallon of regular.
I think it's absolutely disgraceful.
At the White House, a renewed push to acknowledge what Americans are feeling.
We're just in a difficult time right now with this inflation.
In the Oval Office, a rare in-person meeting between the president and the Federal Reserve chairman, who has ratcheted up interest rates trying to tame inflation.
To discuss my top priority, and that is addressing inflation.
The president also published an opinion piece with his steps to fight inflation. Our recent NBC News poll showed just 33% of Americans approve of the president's handling of the economy. Just paying for basics like rent is a constant worry for a single mother of two, Kiara Age.
Within the next couple of weeks, me and my kids could possibly be on the streets because, you know, the prices of everything keep going up.
Her rent in Nevada just went up 25%.
It's a lot. Like, I try not to get emotional about it, but it's a heavy load to carry.
Back at the White House, President Biden has been rattled by his sinking poll numbers and is pressing aides for a more compelling message and sharper strategy to address inflation and improve his political standing. People close to the president tell NBC News. One Democratic lawmaker said the White House has failed to put forward an intellectually honest plan to combat inflation. The president's economic advisor on inflation today.
He's made very clear, and he's communicating very clearly that that's his top economic priority.
All right, Kelly O'Donnell joins us now from the White House. Kelly, we heard your report there in your story about the frustrations the president was having. I know tonight you have some new reporting about tension within the White House when it comes to the messaging.
That's right, Tom. Our whole White House team has been working on this, and advisors tell us that the president has been concerned that what he thinks is his plain-speaking, authentic style that he believes connects with voters and has been part of his success over his long career has been stifled by some of the people around him. And he's expressed frustration that he wants more Democrats coming out and defending him on television and in public. In addition to that, he's been getting some polling numbers each week, and some of that we've learned has been really mystifying to the president when he sees numbers that put him in the same category as former President Trump at this time, when President Biden thinks that there are a lot of things in his story to tell that are much stronger, things like a good jobs picture and higher wages, even though inflation is certainly a big concern. Another issue is the midterms, and at this point what our reporting tells us is that the president doesn't feel the White House has a winning message yet, and he's been tasking the people around him to help try to find that to prepare Democrats for the elections ahead. Tom?
Kelly, while I have you here and on that reporting, is it on big picture items or is it on cleanups when there are gaffes from the president?
Well, one of the things that the president has been frustrated about is when he says something in what he thinks is that authentic style. One example would be when he was in Poland and talked about Vladimir Putin not being able to remain in power. For some people, that was a signal saying he was suggesting regime change. He pushed back on that when they said he was not changing policy. And what he meant to say, and what he talked about in the days after that, was don't change what I'm saying, that it is about him saying that as a moral authority, Putin shouldn't be in power any longer. At the same time, advisors say when they do put out statements that clarify or follow up what the president has said, and in our parlance we say cleaning up, they always say the president is informed of any of those statements that come out. So the president is frustrated when he is having these moments where aides feel like there needs to be a correction. He feels he's being held back. And aides are also trying to make certain that the message meets exactly what the president's goals are. Tom?
Kelly O for us at the White House. Kelly, thank you. We now head overseas to the war in Ukraine, where Europe is tightening the squeeze on Russia. The European Union agreeing to ban most Russian oil imports. This comes as Russian forces advance deeper into eastern Ukraine. Richard Engel has a story.
Russia is grinding out a victory in eastern Ukraine, with its troops advancing behind barrages of rockets and artillery. Ukraine's President Zelensky warning Russia is now using maximum combat power.
Russia's destructive advance is all about range. Each time Russia takes new territory, it can push forward its artillery and rockets by a mile or two, extending their capabilities. And now Russian troops can even attack the center of Slavyansk, which is one of the major cities in Donbass.
At 1 a.m., Russian shells pounded this row of apartments in Slavyansk. Vitaly Krivorotenko, a cobbler, says after the explosion, he looked through the dust for his wife, Nelly. She started to shout, "My legs, my legs." She wanted water, but there was no cup. So I gave her water from my hands. Then she lost consciousness, he told us. The sheets on Nelly's bed are drenched in blood. With her picture in his hands and more blood by his feet, Vitaly says he doesn't know where his wife is now. Downstairs, American volunteer Dallas Casey had arrived. The 6-year Army veteran who says he was compelled to help Ukraine defend its democracy was nearby. Dallas and his team helped Vitaly down from his apartment and to a car bound for a hospital where they'll tell him his wife is dead. Dallas says the fighting is getting heavy. In nearby Severodonetsk, Russia has seized half the city.
When we were in Severodonetsk, we were definitely being shelled heavily. Buildings would get hit and we would go to those buildings immediately, try to pull people out.
And more help is coming. Ukrainian troops are pouring in, and the United States is pouring in more weapons.
And Tom, the European Union is also tightening its economic screws, banning the import of Russian oil by ship. By pipeline is still allowed. It's expected to cut the supply of Russian oil to Europe by 2/3 by the end of the year, draining, but not totally eliminating, a key source of income for the Kremlin. Tom?
Back now with jury deliberations in the trial watched around the world. Actor Johnny Depp suing ex-wife Amber Heard for defamation, with the two launching shocking allegations of abuse at each other during 6 weeks of testimony. NBC News correspondent Ron Allen is at the courthouse in Fairfax, Virginia. He joins us now live. Ron, as it is with a lot of cases, we rely on notes from the jury to sort of learn more about the deliberations. We did get some indication of where the jury is today in their deliberations, correct?
We may have, Tom. And the answer, I think, is that it's very complicated. This is not a simple guilty or not guilty case as in a criminal trial. This is a civil case. And the jury essentially has to make as many as 40 different decisions, yes or no, questions about defamation and about the statements that Depp made and about the statements that Depp's lawyer made that Heard says were defamatory against her. And so the jury tried to clarify one of those issues. And again, it's kind of complicated, but the bottom line is that the jury is going through this all line by line. Their instructions run some 30 pages, and they define terms like defamation and malice and what those things mean. And again, this all centers on this op-ed that Heard wrote in 2018 that Depp says defamed him. And there's the title of it, for example, it says, "I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath." That has to change, the title. Depp says that defamed him. And so the jury has to decide things like, was that statement made by Ms. Heard? The statement, the defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard? Was that yes or no? Was there malice? Did Depp prove by clear and convincing evidence that Heard acted with actual malice, yes or no? And unless the jury says yes to all of these questions, they can't find for him. Similarly, when they consider the other side of this case, they have to decide all these other things that the lawyer for Depp said. So again, the bottom line is, yeah, there were a lot of sensational allegations of abuse and back and forth and all kinds of Hollywood tabloid things, but now the case is in the hands of the jury, and they're looking at the law and they're looking at very specific things. So they could decide for Heard, they could decide for Depp, they could decide against, not for or against either of them. And then there's, of course, the question of money. One side is asking for $50 million, the other for $100 million. The jury could decide to give them nothing or everything. So I think the bottom line is that this is going to take a while, and it's probably not going to be a yes, no, up, down, guilty, not guilty verdict. It's probably going to be a mixed verdict somewhere in all of this morass, if you will.
Yeah, and Ron, just remind us again, what exactly was the question they asked?
They asked the question to clarify this statement. The statement was the title of the op-ed. I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. The jury asked whether they have to decide whether that statement is true or false, or whether the entire op-ed is true or false. The judge said that you have to decide whether that statement is true or false. And there are 3 statements from the op-ed that were pulled out that the jury has to decide whether they are defamatory or not. And some of that the underlying issues have to do with the abuse allegations. That's how we get to that. So that's where we are. The jury has now was together. They deliberated all day today, a couple hours on Friday. Interestingly, neither Depp nor Heard was here over the weekend. We know that Johnny Depp played a concert in England with his friend Jeff Beck. And if you look at there's advertising suggesting that Depp has in England that go through June 7th, which means that he may not be here if the jury reaches a verdict in the coming days.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait.
Her side said that she will be here.
We're going to have to wait and see if he ends up being there. All right, Ron, we thank you for that. All right, we are back now with Top Stories news feed, and we are starting in Florida, where a man has died after a possible gator attack near Tampa Bay. New video shows trappers at the scene in Largo Park. Authorities believe the victim was in the water looking for a frisbee before he was killed. There have been a number of alligator attacks in that park in recent years, but officials say there are signs urging the public to stay out of the water. Next to a wild shootout in Henderson, North Carolina, you got to see this video. It's surveillance video, and it captures the moment gunfire broke out at a gas station. At least 3 gunmen exchanging fire in broad daylight, bullets shattering the store window, sending some customers, look at this, running for cover, literally coming out of that convenience store, running through broken glass. Some people suffered only minor injuries, police issuing multiple warrants, but no arrests have been made there. And a close call for a group of boaters out at Lake Powell over the holiday weekend. Watch this. New cell phone video shows the moment parts of a cliff collapsed into the water. Luckily, nobody was injured. It's unclear what caused the rock slide or if it has anything to do with the extreme drought conditions impacting that lake. We have an update to a story we brought you last week. Kevin Spacey says he will voluntarily appear in the UK to face new sex assault charges. The disgraced actor is accused of sexually assaulting at least 3 men there from 2005 to 2013. In a statement to NBC News, Spacey said he was disappointed with the charges, but is, quote, confident that he can prove his innocence. Now to the Americas. Nearly 100 people are dead after floods and landslides brought on by nonstop rain wiped out entire neighborhoods in northeastern Brazil. Hundreds working for days to rescue survivors from the mud, as experts say the disaster could be linked to climate change. Here's NBC's Kathy Park.
Tonight, a desperate search to find the dozen still missing in northeastern Brazil after a weekend of flooding and landslides. Rescue teams have been working tirelessly for days, digging out the victims, even pulling out bodies covered in mud. A week of heavy rains triggering deadly landslides, killing at least 91 people. The floodwaters swallowing streets and homes, displacing 5,000 residents.
Ela começava a chover. A gente perdeu parente, amigo nosso, pastor Ezequias, e a sua filha, né? Ele foi ajudar na barreira e a barreira ela caiu em cima deles dois.
On Monday, President Jair Bolsonaro flew over the affected areas, but his helicopter couldn't land safely on the soaked soil.
Obviamente, triste. Manifestamos nosso voto de pesar aos familiares. O nosso objetivo maior é confortar os familiares e com meios materiais também atender a população.
The landslides wiping out favelas in the city of Recife, impoverished neighborhoods built on hillsides and vulnerable to natural disasters. 4 major floods in the last 5 months have devastated communities throughout Brazil, with experts saying the intense rainfall may be a direct result of climate change. In March, Recife became the first Latin American city to join an insurance program for climate disasters, an initiative created by a network of local and regional governments and financed by a German development bank. Tonight, it's a race against time to save lives as the relentless rain keeps everyone on high alert. Kathy Park, NBC News.
Okay, let's turn now to top stories global watch. Nepal authorities have found the cockpit voice recorder used in a fatal plane crash. The black box was cut off from the wreckage from the plane found stuck on a mountain cliff. Search teams first discovered the crash site on Monday. The box will be airlifted to Kathmandu for further investigation. The remains of all 22 people on board have also been found. Taiwan says China has sent at least 30 warplanes into its air defense zone. It's the biggest incursion since January. Taiwan is deploying fighter jets to warn them off. It comes as a U.S. delegation led by Senator Tammy Duckworth arrived in Taipei. They met with Taiwan's president to discuss several topics, including regional security. All this just days after President Biden warned China against invading its neighbors. Okay, we want to stay overseas now. Preparations are underway across Britain for the Queen's Jubilee. Over 12 million set to celebrate 70 years of Queen Elizabeth's reign. Artists like Elton John and Lin-Manuel Miranda tap for the 4-day-long spectacle. Keir Simmons is there.
This morning, final touches and anticipation. London decked out in red, white and blue ahead of the historic celebration. Marking the Queen's 70 years on the throne, a milestone no British monarch has ever reached until now.
These streets will be full of people.
Yeah. Everyone will be coming out to celebrate, so it should be fantastic.
A 4-day-long display of pageantry awaits. On Thursday, pomp and ceremony, called Trooping the Colour, a traditional display dating back over 260 years to mark the monarch's official birthday. Then a crowning moment, the family balcony appearance. This time, Andrew, Harry and Meghan will not be there for the spectacular flypast. And in the evening, more than 2,000 beacons will light up the skies to mark 70 years of the Queen's reign. On Friday, a service of thanksgiving at St Paul's Cathedral will gather the whole royal family together. Saturday will bring the Queen's favourite moment, the Derby. We got an early preview at Epsom Downs, home to the most famous horse race in the world.
Okay, wow, the winner's enclosure.
Yeah.
And the Queen will be...
in the royal box.
Right there?
Yeah.
Oh, she gets the best view.
She gets a good view.
She gets a good view.
And she's been a loyal supporter of the Derby for so many years. She's only missed 4 since her coronation in 1953.
The Queen and her family clearly enjoyed their day at the races.
A party outside the palace will follow in the evening, with a concert including the legendary Diana Ross, who tweeted, "I am honoured to perform for Her Majesty the Queen once again." On Sunday, street parties, more than 200,000 events around the UK, over 12 million gathering to celebrate the Queen.
We've seen a phenomenal level of interest in the big Jubilee lunch celebrations this year.
And to end it all, a parade of more than 10,000 people performing during the Jubilee's pageant extravaganza.
People come from across the country, so many people come together for that momentous moment in central London. I think it's going to be a really fitting end to the weekend.
The Queen has marked 3 Jubilees before, silver in '77, to gold in 2002 and diamond nearly 10 years ago in 2012. But this will be the Queen's first without her husband, Prince Philip. She's also facing mobility issues that could prevent and limit her attendance at some events. The royal family coming together to support the Queen, despite some strained ties.
All right, Keir joins us now from London. Keir, so many people around the world are going to be watching what happens right there behind you. And I guess the big question is, what's the latest on which royal family members will be in attendance for the celebrations?
They really will be watching, Tom, the chemistry, who sees who, if you like. What I don't think we'll see is Andrew, Harry and Meghan outside the Buckingham Palace there behind me on the balcony. Look how beautiful that is. But I think we'll see them later in the week. It is Lilibet, Harry and Meghan's daughter's birthday on Saturday. Who will go for that birthday? Meanwhile, Prince Andrew, the leader of the Church of England tonight, Tom, is saying that he is trying to make amends and suggesting that we are not forgiving enough. Those comments causing controversy here tonight.
Yeah, of course. And Keir, regardless of how you feel about the Queen or the royal family, this is an extraordinary accomplishment. Will we hear from the Queen at all during this Jubilee?
You know, it's a great question, because on previous Jubilees, the royal family have had surprises for us, Tom, including the Queen speaking. So maybe we will see that. She's 96, she's frail. We're not honestly sure which events she will manage to be at,
but do expect some surprises, I think, Tom.
All right, we look forward to those surprises. Kier, we thank you for that. Coming up, the major headline home buyers will want to hear. Price is still on the rise, but could there be an end in sight? We'll break it down for you. Stay with us. All right, we're back on Top Story now with Money Talks, what consumers and investors need to know from the business world and beyond. The housing market making headlines today. Home prices in the month of March were nearly 21% higher than they were during the same time last year. But there's competing headlines out there. Some saying the market is also showing signs of slowing down. Senior real estate correspondent Diana Olick joins us now for more on the state of housing costs amid record inflation and rising mortgage costs. So, Diana, let's start with that 21%, nearly 21% increase we saw in March. Does that accurately represent the real picture of the housing market right now, or is it a little bit misleading?
Well, it's a tiny bit misleading only because this is the S&P Case-Shiller report, which is backdated by 2 months, and it's a 3-month running average. So what you're seeing really here is home prices January, February through March. And we did see at that time mortgage rates increasing. They began around 3.25% in the beginning of January. They ended over 4% in March. So even though mortgage rates were rising, we did see home price gains continue to increase, and we expect to see that for a little bit longer. So it is relatively accurate. Yes.
Diana, what's your gut telling you? I mean, when we look back on this period in a few years, do you think this is going to be the peak right now, or do you think prices are going to slow down, or will they continue to go up?
I think home prices are going to cool eventually. We've seen 4 to 5 months of home sales slowing down, and home prices generally lag sales by about 6 months. Now, there's something very unique in this housing market, which is that we have very, very low supply and still strong demand despite these increasing costs. Now, when you talk about home prices coming back, they will appreciate over time. Historically, they always have. If you look at it, the last peak in the housing market for home prices was in 2006. We are up 60% from that peak in 2006, and that was after dropping way down in 2012. So we may see a pullback. We are unlikely to see a national drop in prices, but certain markets certainly will cool off dramatically. And generally, the housing market appreciates at about 4 to 6% annually. So we're hoping to get back to that.
Can you talk to us about some of the markets that are still very hot, where prices still seem to be going up?
Yeah, they're actually literally the hottest markets in America. That is Tampa, Phoenix, Miami, Dallas. And that's because of that great move to the South. When people were told that they could work from wherever they want, we saw this exodus of a pilgrimage to states in the South. And so we see prices go up there. Also in Las Vegas. But then again, you have to look at the nation. Even in those 20 markets that S&P Case-Shiller ranks, Chicago was the lowest. It was still up 13% from a year ago. So all of these markets are in double-digit gains. It's just that those really hot southern markets are seeing the biggest gains.
So, Diana, do the math and/or help me out with the calendar here. If the home sales have been down for 4 or 5 months, you says it takes 6 months for the sellers to sort of realize that the market's changing and bring down their prices. Where does that take us to?
Well, so probably sometime over this summer. I've already been talking to a lot of real estate agents who say that they're having some very difficult conversations with their sellers. They're saying, look, the sky is not the limit anymore. There is a lack of homes for sale. Yes, there is still strong demand, but buyers today simply can't afford everything, and we're seeing a drop in bidding wars. We're not seeing the same type of competition. So sellers are going to have to get a little bit more realistic. We are seeing selling prices start to drop a bit, and we are seeing more inventory come onto the market, as well as homes sit on the market longer. So that increases the overall inventory. When you see that inventory rise, home prices are going to cool a bit because there's just not so much competition.
I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.